Welcome to another TSE single slider. This one's about Stripe Checkout, specifically custom domains. By default, when customers use Stripe Checkout, they'll see checkout.stripe.com in their web browser's address bar, and that works great for a lot of people. However, if you want a more seamless checkout experience for your customers, which keeps them on your domain instead of Stripe's, you can set up a custom domain for Checkout to use. Checkout will still be hosted by Stripe, but the custom domain you specify will appear in the browser's address bar instead of checkout.stripe.com. Let's walk through the process of setting up a custom domain. It starts in the Stripe dashboard under Settings Custom Domains. There you'll find an Add Your Own button. Pressing that button will ask you for the custom domain you want Checkout to use. We're going to use checkout.example.com for this slide, where example.com represents a domain name you control. Note that you must use a subdomain, which is a prefix you add to your domain name. The prefix can be anything you want. It doesn't need to be checkout, but you can't use a domain name by itself like example.com, nor can you use a path off of your domain like example.com/checkout. Also, the subdomain you choose must be dedicated to Stripe Checkout, meaning it can't be a subdomain you're already using for something else. Once you've provided a subdomain, the dashboard will display two DNS records, a CNAME record and a text record. The CNAME record will be used to route traffic from your custom domain to Stripe, and the text record is used to both verify you control the domain and to allow Stripe to create an initial TLS certificate for it, which facilitates secure connections to the custom domain. The next step is to log into your DNS provider and add the CNAME and text records as instructed by the dashboard. After that, you'll need to wait for the DNS records to propagate across the internet. This process can take a while, up to a few days. The good news is Stripe will email you when your domain is ready to go, so you don't have to keep checking your domain status in the dashboard. Once your DNS records have propagated, and Stripe has indicated it's ready to go, your custom domain will be active in test mode immediately. The next step is to test your custom domain in test mode to confirm it works as expected. Tell the Stripe API to create a checkout session, and then check the URL parameter in the response. If the URL is using your custom domain, that means setup was successful. You should visit the URL in a browser to make sure everything works as expected. If you don't see your custom domain in the URL parameter, or visiting the URL doesn't work as expected, check the dashboard for next steps. Now that you've confirmed your custom domain works in test mode, the final step is to activate your custom domain in live mode, which you do in the Stripe dashboard under your custom domain settings. Once that's done, Checkout will start using your custom domain in production. Note that you should wait for and confirm full global propagation of your DNS records before going live. Otherwise, some of your customers may not be able to load Checkout on your custom domain. There are a few other things worth noting about Checkout custom domains. First, custom domains also work with payment links because payment links send customers to Checkout. Next, custom domains do not work with the legacy stripe.redirect to checkout method in Stripe.js. If your integration uses that method, you'll need to switch to redirecting your customers to the URL found on checkout session objects instead. Regarding Connect, direct and on behalf of charges will use the connected account's custom domain. Otherwise, the platform's custom domain will be used. Also note that if you have a certificate authority authorization record, you'll need to add let'sencrypt.org to it in order to allow Stripe to generate a TLS certificate for your custom domain. You can start setting up your custom domain right now by following the detailed step-by-step instructions in our documentation at stripe.com/docs/payments/checkout/custom-domains. I think you'll find it easier to set up your custom domain than it was for me to read that URL out loud.